Imagine digging into the ground and finding something so bizarre, so out of place, it rewrites everything we thought we knew about early humans. That's exactly what happened. Archaeologists recently uncovered evidence of a strange, almost unbelievable habit among cavemen. Something they did regularly. Something that doesn't fit any survival logic we understand today. It wasn't hunting, it wasn't cooking, it wasn't even shelter building. It was weirder. This habit raises questions about who our ancestors really were, and what they might have understood far earlier than we imagined. Get ready. This is the story of cavemen's strangest habit we just discovered. When most people picture cavemen, they think of survival. Spears, fire, caves, and maybe a rough, primitive kind of community. But recent archaeological discoveries are starting to crack that image wide open. In several excavation sites across Europe, Africa, and Asia, scientists found something unexpected: piles of colored powders, etched stones with abstract markings, and neatly arranged bones. These weren't tools, they weren't weapons, they weren't food, they were signs of ritual. One site in South Africa, dating back nearly 100,000 years, revealed fragments of red ochre, an earthy pigment, carefully shaved and stored in abalone shells. There were also small grinding stones, clearly used to turn the pigment into powder. But what for? They weren't painting walls. There was no art in the cave. The pigment was being mixed with fat and stored, possibly used on the body or objects. In other words, these early humans were making makeup. That discovery stunned researchers. It suggested that cavemen engaged in symbolic behavior far earlier than previously thought. Not just function, but expression, identity, belief. Other sites have uncovered similarly strange behaviors. Skulls placed in circles, animal bones arranged by species, shells drilled as beads, or even the deliberate burial of the dead, sometimes with objects. These aren't survival moves. They're symbolic. They're strange. Because the truth is, cavemen didn't just live. They imagined. They wondered. And sometimes they did things that made no logical sense, except in the context of ritual, belief, or group psychology. Even Neanderthals, once thought of as brutish and basic, are now understood to have practiced strange habits. At a site in Spain, researchers found cut eagle claws, fashioned into jewelry. At another, a Neanderthal skeleton was buried with flowers. And in northern Italy, concentric circles made of stalagmites were discovered deep in a cave, dated at over 170,000 years old. Who built them? Neanderthals. Why? We don't know. That's what makes it strange. The deeper we dig, the more signs we find that early humans did something every day, or regularly, that wasn't about food, safety, or shelter. It was about meaning, and that's where the story gets even stranger. We'll explore what this habit might actually have been, and what it says about the true nature of the caveman mind. So what exactly was this strange habit, and why does it matter? The evidence points toward one core behavior: ritualized symbolic activity. In simpler terms, cavemen may have engaged in spiritual routines every single day. Let's start with the ochre. This red pigment isn't just some dirt you find lying around. It had to be mined, ground, mixed with fat or water, and applied. But for what purpose? Some theories suggest it was used on the body, as paint, decoration, or possibly even protection. In some indigenous cultures, red ochre is believed to carry spiritual power. It's used in ceremonies, initiations, and as a kind of armor against spirits or disease. The idea that early humans might have painted themselves every morning, not for camouflage, but for meaning, is revolutionary. Why would they do it? Because they believed it helped. Maybe to ward off bad luck. Maybe to connect with ancestors. Maybe just to feel brave. And it didn't stop there. Other daily rituals may have included arranging stones or bones in certain patterns. In some sites, bones of different animals were grouped carefully, not randomly. Tools that weren't needed anymore were placed next to burials, as if to accompany the dead into another world. These behaviors show something powerful: abstract thought, the ability to imagine a world beyond the visible, to act with intention, even if the outcome wasn't physical. That's huge, because for years, we assumed that kind of thinking, spirituality, symbolism, belief, was a recent invention. But these discoveries push the timeline back tens of thousands of years. Some researchers now believe cavemen performed small rituals every morning. Think about that. Before hunting, before gathering, before moving. They may have touched a carved stone, applied pigment, whispered a chant, or walked to a particular spot to greet the sun. Not because it helped physically, but because it grounded them mentally. This habit of daily ritual might have been their way of dealing with fear, with uncertainty, with the constant threat of death. In a world where danger was everywhere, a moment of ritual gave them control, even if just psychologically. And the impact? Massive. Because rituals create routine. Routine creates stability. Stability builds trust and cooperation. Groups with shared rituals were more likely to survive because they had something stronger than muscle. They had belief. So this strange habit, these daily symbolic acts, weren't useless after all. They were the glue of early human society. And here's the twist: modern humans do the same thing. We'll unpack that in the next part, because the weirdest part of this whole story is that we never really stopped. Here's the real surprise: the strangest habit of cavemen isn't so strange after all, because we're still doing it. Let's break it down. Early humans applied pigments, arranged objects, whispered to the sky, or tapped stones together every morning. We call it ritual. Symbolism, a primitive attempt to find meaning in chaos. But look around today. People light candles before meditating. Athletes slap doorways before stepping onto the field. Travelers kiss necklaces. Parents tuck Lucky Charms into backpacks. None of it makes sense scientifically, but emotionally, it makes all the sense in the world. These are modern echoes of the same strange habit. Cavemen may have begun each day by touching a sacred stone or marking their body with ochre. We begin by checking our phones, scrolling our feeds, sipping coffee from the same mug. It's not about the object, it's about the rhythm. The contradiction is that we think of these early humans as primitive, unthinking, simple. But their use of ritual tells us otherwise. It shows pattern recognition, emotional intelligence, and psychological sophistication. They may not have had written language, but they had routines, and routines gave them identity. In fact, some of the most advanced parts of the human brain, those tied to long-term memory, emotion, and future planning, light up during ritual. That means cavemen weren't just surviving, they were training their minds. And here's the deeper contradiction. We often see modern rituals as superstition or nonsense. We dismiss them as quirks, but in reality, they serve a vital function, just like they did for early humans. Rituals regulate stress. They provide comfort in uncertainty. They strengthen group bonds. They mark transitions. Whether it's singing before a race or bowing before a meal, these acts root us. Even science is catching up. Studies now show that people who engage in personal rituals, whether spiritual or secular, report higher resilience, more focus, and better mental health. So was the caveman's habit strange? Maybe. But it was also brilliant. They didn't understand neuroscience, but they practiced it. Every time they performed their symbolic morning act, they activated parts of their brain that kept them stable, social, and sane. And that makes us wonder, If early humans built identity through shared symbols, through repetition, rhythm, and ritual, what happens when we lose that? Could our disconnection from meaning, routine, and shared acts be one reason for rising stress and anxiety? Maybe what we call strange is actually essential. And to really understand the power of this habit, we need to see it in action, on one unforgettable morning. That's where the next part takes us next. Picture this: a cold, misty morning in prehistoric northern Europe. The sun has barely risen. Light trickles through a thick canopy of trees. In a shallow rock shelter, a small group of early Homo sapiens begins to stir. They didn't sleep in beds. They didn't wake to an alarm, but they woke together, as if on cue. A child yawns. An elder rolls over, grunting softly. One man, lean with deep lines carved into his face, sits up first. His name is lost to time, but we'll call him Car. Car doesn't speak as he rises. Instead, he reaches for a flat stone tucked carefully under a stack of moss. On its surface are crude lines, some recent, some old. It's not art, it's memory, a kind of map, maybe a prayer. He touches it with his fingers, traces a pattern, then presses his thumb into a small bowl of red pigment made from crushed ochre and animal fat. He smears a single line across his cheekbone. Not decoration, connection. Behind him, a teenage girl copies the motion. She's learned this from him since childhood. Her line goes across her brow. They don't speak. They don't need to. One by one, others follow. Red lines on faces, arms, even across the chest. It's silent, focused, reverent. Next, they move to a cluster of stones, arranged in a semicircle. This isn't a fire pit. It's a ritual space. Car places a broken antler in the center. Not for burning, for meaning. It belonged to an animal hunted weeks ago, a rare kill that fed the whole group. Honoring it now honors their survival. They sit briefly in a circle. One woman hums a low tone. The others join, not quite a song, but not random either. It's a pattern, a pulse, a memory. This is the caveman's morning routine. Not survival in the physical sense, but mental, emotional, social. This ritual, strange to our eyes, is their anchor. It resets the day. It reminds them who they are, where they are, and what they face. After a few minutes, the pigment is packed away. The stones are left undisturbed. The group begins their real work, gathering, moving, hunting, but something important has already happened. They've connected, they've grounded, they've aligned, and it all began with a smear of red and a silent circle. This wasn't superstition, it was structure, and structure, in a world of constant danger, made survival more likely. Now think about that moment. Quiet, intentional, deeply human. How different is it from a soldier tapping a photo before deployment? A student holding a lucky charm? A parent whispering a prayer at sunrise? Maybe not so different at all. And that brings us to today. We ask the real question: what can you take from cavemen's strangest habit? So what does a morning ritual with red ochre and arranged bones have to do with us? More than you might think. In a time of endless distractions, fractured attention, and rising anxiety, humans are desperately searching for something we used to have. Ritual. Not religious necessarily, but intentional, symbolic, grounding. Our ancestors woke up in danger, but they responded with rhythm and meaning. Today, we wake up to notifications and noise, and we skip the very things that could steady us. What cavemen did every morning wasn't just strange, it was smart. It was their way of stabilizing a chaotic world. And that same approach might be what we're missing. Consider the science. Studies show that people who begin their day with repeated, meaningful actions, whether journaling, meditating, exercising, or even drinking tea mindfully, report better mood regulation, stronger focus, and more emotional resilience. It's not the ritual itself that matters. It's the consistency, the symbolism, the intentional pause. Athletes call it mental priming. Therapists call it grounding. Cavemen just did it. And if you think about it, we already have our own versions. That mug you always use. That song you play on the way to work. The way you line up your pens or triple-check the door lock. Even your morning stretch, your prayer, your pause at the window. They're not silly. They're survival echoes. Human tools passed down, reshaped by time, but rooted in the same need, to feel steady in a shifting world. Now imagine applying this with purpose. Waking up and doing something ritualistic. A symbol that today begins now, that you're awake, aware, and ready. It doesn't have to be spiritual. It doesn't need ochre or chanting. It just needs to be yours. And the impact? It stacks. Over days, weeks, years, that daily act becomes a tether, a compass, a tiny moment of control in a world that often feels out of control. That's what cavemen understood without ever naming it. They didn't survive just with tools or fire. They survived with meaning. What if the strangest thing cavemen did wasn't so strange after all? What if it was the first sign of something beautifully human? A need for ritual, for rhythm, for connection beyond the physical. From red ochre on the skin to arranged stones at dawn, they created order where there was none, meaning where there was fear, a sense of self in a world that often erased it. And we are the descendants of that choice. Our lives are more comfortable, but also more chaotic, more advanced, but often less grounded. So maybe it's time we learned something from the strange. Maybe the weirdest parts of our ancestors' lives are the wisest. A morning habit, a symbol, a moment to reconnect. What's your version of red ochre? What's the strange little ritual that makes you feel human? Maybe it's not about going back. Maybe it's about bringing forward what we forgot. Because strange or not, those habits kept us alive. And they still can. What's the strangest habit you have? And does it help you feel grounded? Drop it in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories of ancient human brilliance, survival, and mystery. Let's rediscover what it means to be fully human, one ancient secret at a time.